It's like book club, but it's more than books, and it's not quite a club. All right. So I have a question for you both, and I need to know what fanfic, not canon ship, do y'all think should have happened in real life, like real canon?
Are we still in a world where we think that Wolfstar wasn't a canon ship? Because if we're still arguing that it wasn't canon, then that's my answer. But I feel like at this point it's canon.
I don't know. Wolfstar?
Oh, Sirius Black and Remus Lupin.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, sorry. Not
Sorry,
Marauders.
I'm too deep in the Wolfstar trenches. Sorry.
I haven't read any Marauders fanfic, and I know that maybe I should.
All the young dudes has to go on your list.
You know, I don't think we have anything to say that it's not canon, but I think that the only reason that it's canon is because of the fanfics.
Then my other answer is Roderick and Regina.
Oh my gosh. Okay, Gabriel.
Guys, we're only 1 minute in and I'm already lost. Okay, so are we just talking about Harry Potter characters?
No, we're talking about any ship that you think should have happened but did not happen canonically.
Oh, well, this is obvious then. It's Optimus Prime and Megatron.
You know what? And I'm so for it. I watched Transformers 1 this spring, whenever it came out. And I'm for it. I see it. I get the vision.
They had a spark. They had a spark that was denied to them because of political differences, and I want them to be together.
This was the take that I didn't think we would ever get on this podcast. How did we go from storytelling to talking about Transformers?
The more we have episodes of Gabriel talking about romantic takes, the more he's giving us like boy answers. And I really love the diversity that we're bringing to the podcast right now, because like just out the gate, you're like Transformers, which is just the most boy answer ever. And I love it.
I actually need to take a moment to address that even though the Transformers mostly, but not all, identify by male pronouns, that they are genderless aliens. And I kind of take offense at you saying that this is a boy answer. There's a wide array of Transformer gender politics going on.
I'm not saying no. I'm not saying no.
I'm messing with you. I'm actually not messing with you. That all I said was legit, but I am messing with you.
No, Transformers is definitely a boy answer. I know that my boyfriend's going to watch this episode and be like, yeah, Transformers. Like, he's going to love that. I don't know if you'll agree with that take, but I am all for it. Absolutely. My answer, Zutara, which is Zuko and Katara from Avatar: The Last Airbender. And the reason, okay, I don't think canonically they should have ended up together. Like, I think that Katara and Aang are, the way that the show is written, it's beautiful, wonderful. I love it. Oh my goodness, I could rant about the show forever. And how beautiful the storytelling is. And I love the Aang and Katara together. I do think that Zuko and Katara should have had like a moment in between. I know that the writers were playing with it. They really, really wanted to leave that door open, and they did. They didn't do anything with it. I just would like to have seen something happen that we could like definitively say happened. But I do think that Katara belongs with Aang ultimately. But I think that her and Zuko could have had some fun before.
So actually, this is where I reach an issue, I think, with a lot of established romantic elements in stories. So a lot of romantic stories take place when the characters are teenage to young adult, and then the person that in that story that they have their main romantic interest with, for example, Avatar, Aang, and Katara, they are, what is the term, one true pair, OTP?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'm catching on.
Mm-hmm.
They are one true pair, and even though they go through foibles, they eventually end up together. And I've never found that particularly relevant to how real life works, because for the majority of people, the person who you're deeply in love with when you're in your teenage years is absolutely not going to be your OTP. That's not, I think, the common experience for a lot of people.
I think that we should let it happen. Let's be delusional. Let's not pretend like Avatar: The Last Airbender is real life, but maybe somebody wants to find their OTP when they're 12 and 14. Like, it happens. Let it happen.
Yeah. I think that's too just part of it being fantasy, and like one of the, I mean, we were talking about it last episode of like an unrealistic expectation with romance. And I think that's one of them that nobody really expects from real life. It's just fun to see it happen.
And like, not to mention, like, there's like a part of innocence in watching like teenage like first loves. You don't necessarily want the brutal realities that teenagers are usually a lot more idiotic than they're portrayed in television. And we wouldn't want to watch a real teenage relationship. So what we're getting is an idealized version of first love. And I think that Aang and Katara had a lot more going on in their life that they weren't maybe so worried about. The writers were not worried about their romance arc. They were more worried about Aang needs to save the world. How is he going to defeat the Fire Lord? That was the concern. But none of our answers, okay, except for maybe Wolfstar, none of our answers are really gonna like cause any ripples in community. I don't know. They'll cause ripples in small communities, but none of them are becoming traditionally published books, as far as I'm aware, at this moment in time. But the fanfic that is, the fanfics that are, and the ship that is becoming very popular and to the point where you're getting traditionally published fanfictions and movie deals is Dramione, which is Draco and Hermione from the Harry Potter universe. I definitely want to preface this episode by saying I don't think any of us are okay and agree with J.K. Rowling's sort of extreme and hateful rhetoric that she's spread online. That being said, the Harry Potter world is inescapable. And I mean, we are seeing it opens up a community of fan fiction that you just cannot ignore right now, as millions of dollars are being poured into these book deals and movie deals. We cannot like just ignore that. So just in 2025 alone, there are 3 Dramione fanfics that were published that I am aware of. The first 2 that were published were actually published on the same day, which I thought was crazy, and I had to like double check to make sure. And that was this July. It was Rose in Chains by Julie Soto and The Irresistible Urge to Fall for Your Enemy by Bridget Knightley. Both of those books are by fanfic authors who have gained a ton of popularity for writing Dramione fanfic and other fanfics. And they each have a corresponding fanfiction that kind of inspires the book. And of course, when you have like these, it's hard to get a traditionally published book deal. And when you see that an author has sort of built a community off of another author's work, it is hard to justify that it is okay to like, it feels kind of icky, whether it's right or not, that these fanfics were grabbed as something that they were never supposed to be traditionally published. Fanfic is not supposed to be something that you can make money off of. That's what makes it illegal. That's when copyright has to get involved. And now we are seeing sort of loopholes here. And that doesn't necessarily mean it's okay, but is it, I don't know how right it is that that's happening. Oh, and the last one is Alchemized by Senlin Yu. That's the more recent one. It was in September. I actually spent some time reading it. I am on page 1,000 right now, so I'm like about 30 pages shy of the end. I really wanted to have it done before this recording, but you know, I've read over 300 pages in 24 hours and my brain is a little fried. But I did listen to the entire audiobook of Rose in Chains this summer after it was released. It was something that I was paying attention to. And I have read the fanfics associated with all of these Dramione works. I really wanted to be able to compare the stories with how different is the fanfic from the now traditionally published version. Is it enough that I can separate the two and I can completely separate this work from the Harry Potter universe? Like if I read this book not knowing it was a fanfic, would I still believe that it is its own like standalone thing? I have not read The Irresistible Urge to Fall for Your Enemy, so I cannot really speak on that. The premises are very like they're different-ish. Like the characters, like it's still like a healer is one of them, but it's a healer and an assassin in the traditionally published work, and then in the fanfic it's a healer, Hermione being a healer, and Draco is an Auror. How do you pronounce it?
Auror.
Yeah. Okay. Worried about that. But there is no escaping the like fanfic elements, even in the traditionally published work. Like in the Goodreads description of The Irresistible Urge to Fall for Your Enemy, it gives you the normal synopsis of the story, but then at the bottom it literally says romance tropes. And it just tells you the tropes that, like, enemies to lovers, high interaction, slow burn, hyper competent idiots, he falls first and harder, evisceration as a love language. I did love that last one though, because evisceration as a love language, that is so, I love, but I mean, clearly it's marketable.
I was gonna ask you if those were your notes on our page, or if that was if that was also copy and pasted in. That's kind of hilarious that's in, because it's the AO3 tags. Like, I'm almost certain that if you went to the fanfic page, those are the tags.
No, absolutely. That was the vibe that it was giving me too. So I felt the need to add that here because it still feels fanficky, even if the story is different. And that's maybe okay. I don't know. I've had a lot of, like, I've heard a lot of authors talking about their concerns about this. And now that we are seeing, like, just more and more major works be turned into, like, these marketable things where millions of dollars on the line, of course, we know 50 Shades of Grey. Like, that's kind of like almost the original, like, big fanfic to book to movie pipeline that I can think of.
What if I don't know about 50 Shades of Grey and you need to explain it to me?
50 Shades of Grey started out as a Twilight fanfic. And the original fanfic was called Master of the Universe. And it got popular on, I think it was fanfic.net. I'm trying to remember my, like, research here, but I'm pretty sure it was fanfic.net. I will obviously have to be corrected, but one of the sites. And got super big, and then became traditionally published work. I did not read the fanfic, cannot tell you how different it is. But no one is saying, wow, the 50 Shades of Grey universe is looking a lot like Twilight. Like, you are taking a fantastical universe and then bringing it to, like, a modern, like, non-magical universe. So I really don't think, like, you can compare them, and it's not competing in the same market. Whereas now we're seeing more, like, this is from fantasy to fantasy. And I think that that's where, like, you get a lot more issues and controversy is maybe it feels similar. And that's the reason why I was, like, investigating this all, was because I wanted to really see, people are complaining, are these valid concerns that people are having?
I think there's sort of, like, camps of where the concern lies. Because you have some fanfics like this one where it is still a fantasy world. There's magical elements. I haven't read it, but knowing what it started from and knowing what it's inspired by, I could probably see similarities in it. And I think that there are definite concerns there. That is a very, very thin line to walk as far as, like, copyright infringement and plagiarism. But then I think you have another world of fanfic that's AU based, where it's really just taking those characters.
If I don't know what the phrase AU means, can you explain that to me?
Alternate universe.
Thank you.
So it takes the characters, puts them in completely different scenarios than the original work. You just finished The Love Hypothesis.
Sure did. Fuck Tom.
Yeah. That was a Kylo Ren and Rey fanfic.
Called Love Over Feet.
Yeah, so that is an AU. They're not Jedi fighting, the rise of the Empire again. Like, she's a PhD candidate student. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it's a completely different world. And when you read The Love Hypothesis, you might still have kind of the feel of fanficky language. And I don't know that there are any specific red flags. So much as just, like, a general feeling that the more fanfic you read, you can kind of spot that feeling in other books. But it's not, like, I would never guess right off the bat that that's what it's inspired by. And so I think as far as the concern about is fanfic plagiarism, I think it depends on what the fanfic was originally. I think if it's an AU, there's a lot more leeway because you're not using the same setting and the same characters anymore. They're really just, you've created a different world. You're just using the same character names.
Yeah, so I'm glad you brought up that I read The Love Hypothesis in preparation for this episode, actually. Well, also in that the episode before this was Gabriel doing the history of romance literature, and this is my actual foray into reading a specific romance book. And even going into it knowing that the main characters of The Love Hypothesis were based off of the Star Wars characters, Kylo Ren and Rey. Yeah. Even knowing that going in, what the love hypothesis is it's just a love story about a PhD candidate who has enemies to lovers, grumpy sunshine, other
Fake dating.
Fake dating, thank you. But yeah, it's just a very real world romance that the fan fiction version of it was originally written as it was actually Kylo Ren and Rey from Star Wars in an alternate universe where they are normal people having a normal romance. The actual published version of it just changes their names so to avoid any kind of copyright issue. And yeah, I can attest that I didn't see anything that really led me to believe that this was a fanfic in the first place. However, even I, with my minimal knowledge of the world of fanfic and even the world of romance, I could tell that there was something going on, like something that I was missing at every page of. There was a writing language going on that it expected me to know that I did not.
And maybe I didn't experience that when reading The Love Hypothesis because I kind of understand fanfic language. I actually didn't connect The Love Hypothesis to any sort of fanfiction writing, or like I actually had to double check because I knew that Allie Hazelwood wrote fanfic. I didn't know if The Love Hypothesis was a traditionally published fanfiction, and it was. And we're gonna see like with it, it's a beautiful also example of the fanfic to book to movie pipeline. We have a confirmed movie for The Love Hypothesis starring Lily Reinhart that is coming out this summer 2026-ish, around then. So like we're starting to see like kind of like teaser promo stuff for it. And
as a quick side note, because I think it's hilarious and I can't let us move past it without bringing it up, the casting department did quite literally the funniest thing they could have done, and they casted Daisy Ridley's husband to play Adam.
I didn't realize that.
Well, even I heard about that one, yeah.
Oh my, like I haven't actually, the only Love Hypothesis stuff that I have seen is just Lily Reinhart like having fun and doing stuff. So I actually haven't gotten into like actual Adam content yet. That is hilarious. And I love that so much. And like, and this is also like fangirls, because as someone that loves reading fan fiction, still does it. Like, I haven't read a fanfic in like a year, but like it still regularly happens where I get that itch. Like I need to like open AO3 and find a fanfic that I need to read. I also can understand why authors are concerned about these worlds that maybe an author created a world and then seeing other people use that and twist it into something else. But I have a lot of thoughts here because I think that is what writing is in general. Like when I write a story, I am pulling from so many different worlds that I have read and things that I love seeing and taking my own twist on it. And that is essentially what fan fiction is. Sometimes it's more explicit which world they're taking from, but also generally they're taking from the broader community of fan fiction and knowing what fan fiction readers love and want to consume. And it's always been a little disappointing that you can never like own your favorite fan fictions bound. It's not, people try. People try to bind like Manacled, which is the fan fiction that is associated with Alchemist, and will try to sell it for like hundreds of bucks because you cannot sell it legally. And then of course you get in trouble and you run into legal issues. So I understand people like, oh my gosh, I'm so excited to get the traditionally published version of this book because now I'm able to have it on my shelves and read my favorite fanfic kind of whenever I want. But I guess I'm concerned, do we feel like this is going to ruin fan fiction? That we're seeing more and more of this happening. This isn't a new concern, but it's one that is becoming more and more exacerbated. Oh my gosh. It is an issue that is becoming more and more concerning as the years go on, and it's blowing up into something bigger than it is.
So off the bat, I'll say with the three that we're talking about today and with Dramione fanfic in general, I do think we would be remiss not to pay attention to the fact of 2020's Draco talk going wild. Draco being like having his own little tiny corner of the internet very solidly that people now are like posting nostalgic TikToks of. Like they missed that period of time. you might have come across this in your research for this, but I would be willing to bet that a lot of those Dramione fanfics were written about that time. And now I think that with people becoming more nostalgic for them, with them still being talked about, that kind of led to their publishing. I just think with these 3 specific scenarios, I think it's important to address like this very, very powerful little corner of the internet that has just had some influence over the last couple of years. But as an overall thing, none of these fanfics were written with the intention of being published. And as far as my knowledge, there aren't any fanfic writers out there right now writing with the goal of like getting a book deal and changing it. I think as long as everybody is still writing fanfic from a perspective of just wanting to write more about these characters, of being like, that wasn't enough content. I've consumed all of the canon content and I need more. And then just making it yourself, I think we're fine.
I want to say the issue is less the content of the story being like changing that, and more of you are building a fan base off of an original work that you did not create. And people, the thousands of readers, the tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands, I feel like Manacled has like 1 million like hits, over 1 million hits on AO3 easily. I should double check to see what it is, but like these are big audiences. Oh, I can't check on AO3 because they took it off. Anyway, that's right. Like these are huge audiences that you have gained from a work that is really not your own. And then you are taking that audience with you to your traditionally published work later. And that is where the concern lies with me of, is that where the problem is? Are people buying this book because it's good? Are people buying it because they're Dramione fans and you're just profiting off of like the Harry Potter universe that you created before?
I think 2 points to that. Of one being building off of a world. I think if it's something where your published version is like, you can literally just slide different names in and different like organizations and like slide details in, and then it's the exact same work, that's an issue. But I also don't think that's an issue that's confined to fanfic. I think, okay, I read Red Queen. I loved the Red Queen series. I know Powerless is really popular, and I haven't read Powerless kind of out of principle, because from my understanding, it's literally the Red Queen series. Like, to the point where Victoria Aveyard has had to come on to TikTok and like with receipts of like, I published my books first because y'all are accusing me of plagiarizing Powerless. I wrote my books 10 years ago, because that's Powerless from my understanding, because I haven't read it, but you can literally just change names and like places and it's Red Queen all over again. I think with fanfic, yes, you're building off of a world, but you are building your own plot. And with Manacled, it was rooted in the Harry Potter world, but it also kind of like mashed it with Handmaid's Tale, right? And so it created a new world that was not established in the Harry Potter canon. The events of Manacled aren't something that you can just like slide details in and then all of a sudden it's Harry Potter all over again. So I understand that it's rooted in something established, but it's still a new story. And I do think that that's just what writing is.
All right, I got to bring up something that I think we're dancing around here. I genuinely believe that the pipeline that's being established between things like 50 Shades of Grey and Alchemized, this fanfic to traditionally published, then to movie pipeline, it upsets the natural order of the publishing industry. And that is, I think, like an existential threat that the publishing industry is having to grapple with, in that because this massive world of fanfic exists with millions and millions of readers, and it's something that traditional publishing has really no control over, that it allows these things to exist of their own accord. And I guess I kind of take I'll call it a libertarian stance on copyright. I personally believe that if we got rid of copyright tomorrow, that it wouldn't be that damaging. Like the good stories would still rise to the top, and the entire concept of intellectual property wouldn't matter that much. Like, people would understand that the Handmaid's Tale / Harry Potter story is different from regular Harry Potter. I think the whole intellectual property thing really only exists so that corporations can make money. What we're seeing here is the publishing industry grappling with exactly that. Does copyright even need to exist?
Are you asking, or is that like a rhetorical question?
I think it was both. I actually don't know where I was going with that.
I'm just worried because I feel like it's only a matter of time before someone gets sued and ruins it for the rest of everybody. Like, ruining fan fiction in general. I think that it is dangerous to be seeking out fan fiction, these publishing houses, to be seeking out fan fiction as a means to traditionally publish. Taking on these, because if what Ansley is saying is correct, and no fan fiction author is going on writing fan fiction with the intent of getting traditionally published, then theoretically they are not the ones that are reaching out to agents being like, hey, I wrote this popular fanfic, you want me to convert it and make it like marketable? Because clearly it already has millions of readers. They're not doing that. It's the publishers and agents and editors that must be reaching out to them saying, hey, I see how popular a fanfic is, let's publish this. And I think it is dangerous, even if it, and I agree that Manacled is a completely different world from Harry Potter. By meshing a post-war where Voldemort wins Harry Potter to Harry is dead Harry Potter to with The Handmaid's Tale, you create a completely different story. I want to say all of these are like, and all of the fanfics and all of these traditionally published books are also adult. That is pretty much like the only like demographic that Harry Potter was not written for. It was middle grade and young adult. It never reached like adult territory. Not to say that adults cannot enjoy young adult content. Like that is not like a hard and fast rule. Just the content of it was also meant to be palatable for people like 13 to 17. And is obviously enjoyed by many content like at all ages. But it doesn't compete directly with Harry Potter. So I think that we're maybe a little safe now, but I think it's dangerous.
I see what you're saying, but I think there's another layer to it that all of these traditionally published original works like Harry Potter are almost, I mean, they're not to say that Harry Potter or any of these other books were fanfics, but as far as pulling from an already established world, it happens over and over again. Harry Potter is just based on Lord of the Rings, and there was another one I was going that was just inspired by Harry Potter, and now I'm like, but just this idea that like, oh, the new Stranger Things stuff has some very, very heavy parallels between, have you guys seen it?
No.
Between one of the characters and Harry Potter, like as a character. We see these plot points and these tropes over and over again because that is right. Like you can only have so many variations of story. So we're just seeing the hero's journey over and over again with different places and different characters that go on different journeys, but it's the same core of the story. And I think that for a lot of these, that's what the changes to the fanfics are doing. Because for a lot of the fanfics, like you were saying, of like the good stories will always rise up. It's not like we're seeing fanfics be traditionally published that aren't top of the AO3 charts. Everybody knows this fanfic. They're obviously well-written pieces of work that are valuable and valid stories. And we're just shifting things to make it stand on its own. But I think a lot of them already stand on their own. And they're just doing what every other major fantasy storytelling has been doing for 50 years of recycling and taking inspiration from other things.
I completely agree with that sentiment. And it just really is another like notch in the cap of how Byzantine and just nonsensical our current idea of copyright is. And actually, I mean, I think this goes back to Lily's point of like, how long until somebody's not getting away with this? And frankly, I was looking at some of the upcoming like what's next for the alchemized world, and it seems like there's movie deals in place. Like we're probably going to be seeing a movie in the near future, and I would bet you money that maybe not the movie deal, but licensing deals. Like the moment that we start seeing alchemized in Hot Topic, I very much think that is when famously litigious J.K. Rowling would love to get involved, and this whole thing might come crashing down.
But I don't doubt that would happen. I'm just saying for the overall concept of the argument itself, mm-hmm. I think it still just ties into with the idea that this is just a constant cycle of authors taking from other authors. The only difference in this conversation and these pieces of works are that it's happening at a time that the original work and its author are still in the forefront because the internet has streamlined this publishing process. Because you have Harry Potter movies finishing and whatever simultaneously happening with the first fan fictions being written. And now you just have those fan fictions that are so popular that they're becoming their own works, where pre-internet, this would have taken decades to accomplish. You know what I mean? Like, not to hate on Harry Potter and J.K. Rowling, but had she had the internet, this could have been a Lord of the Rings fanfic first. You know what I mean? Like, the internet has just changed the conversation, but I don't think it's a different conversation than the same one that has been happening over and over again. It's just created the simultaneous aspect of it where now we want to fight over who owns it.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, kind of talking about before, like, that's just how writers write in general, is you are going to take inspiration from what is around you. And also, I don't want to be, like, bashing on Senlin Yu. They are an amazing writer. Like, and I keep seeing TikToks where it is hating on the writing and being like, this isn't good. What are you talking about? Listen, I understand not liking that a book is 1,000 pages. Trust, I am reading it. I am suffering. At the same time, I have read books where I have felt like it didn't need to be that long. This book is so packed. I do not, like, it needs to be a long book. It also kind of pulls in, like, the fanfic was this long singular piece of work. And I don't think that this book would have worked as well if you split it into, like, 3 different books. It's 3 sections, okay? The book is, like, 300,000 words long. And 100,000 words is, like, a solid book length. Like, you could theoretically split each section into a book. The problem is there's a huge time jump in the middle that essentially the premise is the protagonist, Helena, loses her. She's taken to this. Okay. She loses.
How do you not spoil this?
Okay. The premise of this book is that Helena is in a post/current war situation in this world. And she wakes up having no memories of the past 14 months. And even, like, before that, things are a little blotchy. Like, she doesn't remember anything about the end of the war. And yet she knows that, like, a lot of things happened. And so for the beginning section of the book, she doesn't have these memories. That middle section is going back in time and you hearing all of her missing memories and understanding why things happened the way they did. And that is very much also the structure of the fanfic. It's also kind of why it needs to be one solid piece of work. I am not feeling like, oh my gosh, this should have been edited down to, like, 600 pages. I don't think that would have worked very well at all. It would have cheapened the story. And the writing really isn't that bad. It isn't fanfic writing traditionally published. It is, I mean, it pulls on a lot of, like, the romantic-y stuff that we're seeing, but it is by no means, like, a poor quality book that was just published for the sake of making money. Like, there was some effort put into it, and it is a, like, step above, I think, what Manacled was. Yeah, and Senlin Yu is, like, a great writer, and I think that part of the reason that she has the platform that she does is because the writing is good. You're going to inevitably be drawn to good writing, regardless of whether it was Harry Potter fanfic. It could have been Star Wars fanfic, and, I mean, their writing would have taken you it would have captivated you regardless.
I would rather read a book that I know is based on a fanfic and, like, have that in my mind, but be so captivated by the book itself and the unique take on these characters and what they do, than read one of this very new trend, very popular trend of a original book where the first line of it is, like, for fans of Thorns and Roses and Cruel Prince meets Iron Throne, like, whatever, like, books that are automatically comparing themselves to other books to the point where you're just switching out these, it's like I was talking about earlier, you're just switching out these characters and slightly changing the plot line and pitching it as, like, a standalone original series. I got my Kindle in October and I feel so, like, paralyzed trying to find a new book on Unlimited because I read these descriptions and they all sound the exact same, or they're all comparing themselves to the same 2 or 3 books. I would so much rather read something like Alchemized that has gotten great reviews, knowing that it's based on these characters, but that it is so unique and different from what happens to those characters.
I was gonna ask a question about intellectual ownership, but Gabriel kind of already like assessed that maybe intellectual ownership shouldn't be a thing at all, and I am still wrapping my head around that. I have been thinking about it ever since you were talking about like copyright and, you know, should it even exist in our copyright system being like all messed up. And I am just I can't necessarily get my head around like why copyright shouldn't exist. I understand like the good workers are gonna show up, but you shouldn't be able to profit off of other people's work. Like if I write a novel and someone goes and writes a prequel to my novel or writes a sequel to it before I can get the sequel out, that shouldn't be allowed. That shouldn't be legal. Like this is my world. I'm creating it. And just because you can spit out like a sequel faster than me, that's not the way. I don't know. I have these. My mind is spiraling right now, and I need us to go back to that because I need Gabriel to just like lay it out for me in a way that is not gonna make me freak out.
I think to add on to that of like part of why I see, because I don't think I've ever imagined a world without copyright.
Yeah.
So wrapping my head around that has taken a second.
Mm-hmm.
But on the other end of it, with like public domain works, I could kind of see the argument for it because the rights to who gets paid feels strange to me. And I feel like that's most of where your conversation is going. But like at some level with the copyright, I think looking at a couple of years ago, there was a trend of like when works became public domain, people were taking them and like creating completely different stories. So like Winnie the Pooh. There was that like serial killer version movie where like Pooh Bear was super evil and a serial killer. But it's one of those things where had it not been for copyright and the idea of like a public domain work, if that had come out simultaneously, it wouldn't have been long enough for Pooh to become such like a societally concrete idea of what he was. And it would have like you're saying, like if somebody was able to write a sequel before you could, and then it completely changes the connotations of your character, I think that would be incredibly frustrating to an author.
All right. So let me get in on this. So you bring up the situation where you create some work and then somebody else makes a sequel to it before you can. My argument would be there, again, so I'm taking the stance here of all copyright is bullshit and we should get rid of it. My stance there would be, why does it matter? Like ideas are free. Like you are obviously going to write a better story than they are of a sequel of your own work. And I mean, this is where the whole libertarian stance of like media comes in of like, if you actually can't though, if you can't write a better sequel than some random person can, sucks to suck.
Okay, then I'm gonna argue this. Say yeah, I write my book. Someone tries to write sequels. It's not gonna be as good, and so it doesn't matter. I can't make a movie. I cannot. So when someone wants to make a movie of my work, if they no longer have to come to me for my approval, now suddenly there's this whole movie based on a world that I created. I can't make a movie, but that sure damn is my idea up there on the screen. And I'm not getting paid if it becomes successful. That's going to piss me off.
You know, like when you say a joke, but nobody hears you, and then somebody else says it louder and they get the laughs, and that feeling of like, what the fuck? That I think is why copyright exists. Because like, I think that's why it exists. Because it's the noir knight, right?
My novel in the work, yes.
Gabriel's historical fiction. I don't know what your plans are, but let's say you finish it, you want to traditionally publish it, get it all out there. I've been in class with you. We've done workshop sessions, we've done critiques, and I hear what people say, all of this. I take it and write it before you can, and your version gets published. There are some flaws with it that I know because I was in the room, and then I write a better version, and now all of a sudden, all of that hard work you did, all of the research, all of the hours you spent working out these characters doesn't matter because I've taken all of that work and then just like did the tiny little edits that everybody else wanted, and now everybody flocks to mine because it's better.
Okay, so this situation you're talking that you would literally just take my drafts and
Pretty
then
much.
and then add little tweaks to them.
Pretty much.
That's a good point. I didn't actually think about that.
We still haven't addressed the movie issue either, though. Like, things that I can't do. Like, I cannot write a movie. I could not write a play. I could not, like, there are certain elements that other people need to come in to help with that I could not do. And also, I mean, thinking about foreign rights to your book. What's going to stop these foreign publishers from just kind of like stealing and making, like, not really asking for the rights to publish your book in a different country and just translating it themselves? And then, like, I would just have concerns about that too. I think it's just protecting work. And also, like, if you have a successful book, I want to make money. Authors aren't paid a lot of money generally. Like, let me get every dollar that I can possibly get because I am struggling out here.
I think that's what the bulk of that conversation is that, yes, ideas are free. And if somebody takes your idea and makes it better, then, like, it sucks to suck. But if you've put in all of this work for your idea, that was your idea. Like, you should still be able to profit off of it. You should still be able to have the rights to it, even if somebody else has a better way of doing it, because that's what fanfic is for.
I mean, it is kind of interesting that we've already seen this play out. I mean, that's what fanfic, that's what AO3, fanfic.net, all of these websites is in fact the free marketplace of ideas. Like, there are no rules other than, like, societal etiquette rules on these websites. And this is kind of reaching what, like, the final evolution of it is. When you do have just this free marketplace of ideas and concepts and writing, eventually they become so popular that they break through into the mainstream. And I mean, bringing it back to what I was saying earlier, I just think that this is the existential threat that traditional publishing is dealing with, of how do you even square this circle? Like, that there are just these ideas that are existing out of the ether that they're trying to figure out a way to contain.
Is it a threat, or is it just the evolution? To you, what of this process, what of this change feels like it's threatening the structure of the publishing industry, as opposed to just changing the way the publishing industry works?
Honestly, they're one and the same at this point. Like the change is the threat. Like, we're going to have to find a new model, because the way I see it, the whole alchemized 50 Shades of Grey thing is proving that traditional publishing as we know it, especially in the internet era, just isn't that viable anymore. And it does need to change. I don't know what the new model will be, but it has to incorporate this absolutely massive millions of readers fan base that is fan fiction.
I think that's why this is such a hot topic right now. I mean, it's not as easy as saying, like, it should be one way, it should be another way. You can't just tell people to not traditionally published fan fiction. Like, you can't just have, the publishing houses, as far as I'm concerned, are not marketing these books as being previous fan fictions. They've been very careful about that. I'm sure there are laws about that. That is how they would get in trouble. So when J.K. Rowling does come to sue, you know, she won't have much of a case, because the publishing houses are doing their best to protect themselves from it. I am less concerned about that and more concerned about, like, fan fiction not being easily accessible anymore, or it's changing the world of what fan fiction is. It isn't supposed to be this expectation of reading traditionally published books on AO3. It's not meant to be a source where publishers can just go and find the top fanfics and pick and choose who they want to, like, ask to write a traditionally published book. I'm worried that there's going to come a point where someone's going to make a mistake. A publishing house is going to make a mistake, and someone's going to get sued, and fan fiction, as we know it, is going to get ruined. AO3 is going to get shut down. Or, I mean, not to say there's nothing else, something else wouldn't come up in its place, but it becomes, I think, dangerous. Or authors, you know, or being able to put clauses in their books where they say you're not allowed to, like, recreate any fan fiction using my characters, my world, because they're scared that someone is going to build something off of their own work. And I just, my worry is that it's ruining it for everyone.
So I have points to both of you, actually. To that point first, as far as having somebody in the future ruin it for everybody else and having a publisher misstep and screw up like a really popular fanfic and then ruin the whole book deal, like that's a valid fear. I don't think it's possible for AO3 to get shut down on the basis of that because they're not breaking any copyright laws. All of the authors in the world can get mad and call for AO3 to be shut down, but as long as they're not legally doing anything wrong, which they're not, nothing can happen. I think that to also the point of like putting clauses in your book, I don't think that that's legal because these people that are creating work like fanfics are not claiming the rights to your work. And that is a matter of free speech. Like, I don't think that we are ever in a position where we have to worry about the sake of fanfiction's accessibility and like its right to exist, because legally fanfic as it's like on its own without any of the traditionally published elements is not doing anything wrong.
Maybe now, but I'm also thinking about laws changing in the future. Authors causing enough of an uprising where publishers are suddenly allowed to put clauses in their books about fan fiction. We're already seeing, I mean, we're seeing that with AI right now, is like we're seeing them being like, you know, you can't use this book for AI usage, whatever. We are seeing protections put in place. And that's things that you wouldn't have even thought of 5 years ago that you would see in a book. And I think that also AI is changing the fan fiction game because now suddenly you can write AI. That is the one thing that AI is good at, is writing, is stealing from other things and turning it into something kind of different. What happens when an AI generated fan fiction gets so popular? Like, I don't know because it's free, so it's harmless until it's not.
But that's the point, is that the reason we have AI clauses, the reason that an AI generated fanfic wouldn't work is because that is violating copyright law, because it is stealing. It is stealing and then claiming it to be its own AI generated work. That is the copyright infringement. That's why it's illegal. That's why there are protections against it. Emily, who's a 15-year-old college or 15-year-old high schooler in her bedroom writing Dramione fanfic, is not going to get hit with a copyright suit because she's not claiming to own any IP associated with this world. She's just writing, exercising her right to free speech. I think that original AI free fanfic is not in danger because I can't fathom how we would get to a point of laws that would infringe upon it, because it is inherent freedom of speech. You are not making claims to the IP. You are not profiting off of the work when it's up on AO3, and therefore it's freedom of speech. Like, nobody can come after you for that.
The whole problem is now others are profiting.
But
and
that's what I'm saying. Original fanfics that just exist on AO3. Not this. This is a different conversation, and that's the bulk of the conversation that we've had today.
Yes.
I don't think AO3 is ever at danger of being shut down because of this.
Yeah.
Is my point.
I could understand. I think that I could see AO3 being attacked, though. And if we do, I mean, the problem is the traditionally publishing, like the gray area of who owns these Dramione fanfics that are being traditionally published, even though it's not Dramione at all, even though it's very different. Like, it's still very clear. Like, I picked up Alchemized because I knew that it was based off of Manacled, and I liked Manacled. So, we are seeing money get into play, and that is where I see the dangers. Is because originally, yeah, of course, AO3 is not getting targeted. Like, nothing's going to happen there. But now money is coming into it, and maybe it's not AO3's fault that money is coming into it, but it is, like, these publishers that would ultimately be the ones ruining it.
To bring it back to something I said earlier, you just got to follow the money when it comes to these things. And I do genuinely believe that the moment one of these fanfic with, I believe the term is filing the serial numbers off, where you take all of the elements that were from the original work and you just replace terms, all these fanfic that are of that vein and become their own original works, the moment that a genuine, honest to God merchandising deal happens, I'm talking, collectibles in the aisles at Target, I think that's when this all comes crashing down, and like I don't know what happens. I don't know, who gets in trouble, if it's AO3 or if it's a publisher or something, but like there's just too much money in that, and something has to break.
Yeah, I'm not optimistic enough to think that this is sustainable. There is clearly some deeper issue going on here that, I mean, someone big enough is going to get pissed off enough, and there's going to be lawsuits, and it's right now, and the whole thing is it hasn't gotten big enough yet where maybe people have been concerned. It hasn't. But like Gabriel's saying, like it's only a matter of time before something does get that big, and then it becomes a whole issue.
That actually kind of circles it around back to what I wanted to say to your point with the traditional publishing world and how it's changing things. There were the 3 Dramione fanfics this year, and then other ones that we talked about, or other examples that we talked about, were the After series by Anna Todd, which was originally Harry Styles fanfic. Another AU, like it was not the band, but Harry Styles fanfic, The Love Hypothesis, and then 50 Shades. And I think one aspect of this that I want to point out is that, yes, some of these books are getting movie deals, but when you think about the After movies, they had their 15 minutes, and now nobody really talks about it except for the original fans of the original fanfic. Out of those like 6 whatever examples I had, think about how many other books are still being traditionally published the regular way of an author writing a manuscript, going through the I can never say that word right. Like when you write to agents.
Querying.
Yes. Query. I can never say it right on the first try. I don't know why. But like that's still a regular process that is going on. And I think that a lot of these fanfic to book to movie, these are getting attention because they're new. But I really don't think that they're a threat. I think that they have their 15 minutes because it's new and it's exciting. But the only people that really ever pay attention to it are fans of the fanfic. I know that Alchemized is a big deal right now, but I guarantee you the only people that have really read it right now are people that have read Manacled. And it's going to get its movie deal, possibly. People are going to watch the movie, but then we're going to move on. I think with The Love Hypothesis being one of those that is so far removed from the original work, I think that one might grow legs a little bit longer because nobody is going. You said that you picked up Alchemized because you knew it was Manacled. People picked up The Love Hypothesis because it sounded interesting. There were some people reading it because they knew of its origins, but a majority of that audience went into it not knowing it was a fanfic, and it survived on its own. And I think that is the test. I feel like right now people are making this out to be a bigger threat to the industry than it actually is. Because when we see past examples, things are changing a little bit and it is becoming more commonplace, but traditionally published works are still a vast majority of works coming out. Movies that are based on traditionally published works are still far outweighing movies based on original fanfic work. I don't know. I think that what you were saying of like eventually somebody big enough is going to get mad enough that they tackle it. All it's going to do is stop fanfics from getting traditionally published. And then we're right back to the same space that we've always been in. And I think that fanfic authors are not really going to be upset about it because for most of them, it's like a pipe dream sort of idea that it'll get published because the main motivations are still just to spend more time with characters.
This is a good time to bring up. I wanted to make sure I brought this up before we close out this episode, that the most critically acclaimed book of the year, the book that won the 2025 Pulitzer Prize for Fiction, James by Percival Everett, is a fan fiction. I don't know how many people are aware of it. I hope a lot because it won the prize, but it is a retelling of Huckleberry Finn from the secondary character Jim's perspective. And the only thing that makes it different, I would argue, from something like Alchemized is that Huckleberry Finn is past its copyright date. So we are living in a world where even the upper echelon of literature is still within this nebulous realm of what fan fiction is.
It's exactly what I was talking about. Just the internet has made things more simultaneous. I think that that's a great example.
It's hard to like have this conversation. And I was the one that really wanted to talk about like this whole fanfic to book to movie pipeline that we're seeing. And it's hard because even I don't have like a clear answer or feeling about it because I love fanfic. I love having Alchemized too. I think it feeds my fangirl heart. I love that The Love Hypothesis is getting a movie and, you know, potentially Alchemized as well. Like I will be there watching. It's just the creator in me, the author in me, you know, regardless of how successful my books ever become, I still have to like grapple with But what if I was the one that was getting, like, someone else wrote a fanfic of my work, and how would I feel then? And I think it's hard to think about. And I don't know if there's necessarily an answer, but I hope that fanfic is not going anywhere. And I hope that, that regardless of how big anyone gets, I really hope that we're able to protect free speech and that it doesn't ruin it for everyone. AO3, keep fighting.
I don't have a good way to wrap a bow on this either, but I do want to say that I appreciate how Lily, you and I took a pretty negative perspective on this, and Ansley took a positive perspective on this. Is that grumpy sunshine?
It could be.
Absolutely, Ansley is the sunshine for this episode, at least. I know that Ansley will have her grumpy moments.
I can't wait.
What our next episode is going to be, but our next episode is actually going to be structured a little differently than our first 3. So every 4 episodes, we're going to release a cocktails and classics episode. And this round, our classic is going to be Frankenstein. And I'm going to make cocktails for us to sip and chat over the relevancy of Frankenstein, how it holds up in the modern day, and what Mary Shelley was doing when she wrote the book originally, and just giving all of our thoughts on that.
We're going to talk more about Jacob Elordi. You know it.
Yeah, I'm not done.